Well, welcome to Bill and Eamon's Bogus Hangout. We've got a crew already. We're gonna let everybody introduce themselves. Doc,
Hey everybody, Doc Sheldon here of Intrinsic Value SEO and Search News Central, and I'm just here to give Terry some competition at grouchiness.
Kenneth,
I'm Ken Moody from K Moody and Associates, and I'm here just to have fun and hanging out with the guys.
Terry,
Terry Van Horn. Yeah, I just go wherever Doc goes.
and I'm Bill Slosky, author at SEO by the Sea and director of SEO research at Go Fish Digital. Uh, so I posted a post last week, the same day that John Mueller came out with the opposite news. I said Google has come out with a patent that says you your chances of getting a featured snippet increases if there's structured data on your page that helps answer the question. So you have textual passage that says the answer, and you also have structured data that says the answer. And John Mueller said, not so much. He said, we don't really look at structured data for answers. But there's a schema answer that pretty much says that they do. That you can get answer rich snippets. So
I've got a few of those, and all I used was structured data.
all you used was structured data.
Yep.
Same here.
So I've got a few where I just wrote text on the page and got featured snippets and had no structured data on those pages. So didn't like have structured data schema that said what the question was and then said what the answer was.
Oh, I don't have both. All I do is mine are usually the answer to a question is on my page. For instance, I'll tell what something is, right? This is, and give basically a definition, but
Yeah.
it's not, it answers the question is, what is this?
The patent doesn't say that it's required to use question schema or question and answer schema.
Right.
It just says they might use structured data, which could, in addition to schema, be database tables, because that's considered structured data too.
Is it?
I think even HTML tables could be the same thing, right?
As long as they're not layout tables.
I never thought of that. That makes sense. I never thought of
Oh,
that.
you mean that the columns are named? It's probably more likely.
Yeah, as long as you aren't like setting up how the page is laid out with everything on it using a table instead of using data. If you have table headings that are labeled as something and rows that might be like date and political party, things like that. Have you used Google's experimental table search? It's a table, you can search for tables that show information. And you can use them for not only things like what is the longest wooden pier in California, but you can also search for products like sizes of 4K televisions.
Right. I've always kind of looked at it this way. Anything that can be put into a name and value pair,
Yeah.
any kind of markup that does that. So even putting a colon between something, it does is almost like structured data too.
Right. And Wikipedia has lots of colon delimited tables that Google uses in knowledge panels and featured snippets. So, you search for something like, what is the capital of Poland? And there's a Wikipedia article that shows Warsaw is the capital of Poland using a colon between capital and Warsaw.
Yeah, and I was mistaken. I have featured snippets, not answers. But now I've got a FAQ on a page. There's a make work project if I ever saw one.
There you go.
So let me ask you, what about addresses? I've seen, we typically do schema in a couple ways, but I've seen schema for addresses markup done in the metadata, and then I've also seen it done on the site with the address. Now, some of the new schema plugins for WordPress just put it in the meta instead of formatting an actual address that's displayed that you can read as text on the website. Do you know what I'm saying?
So Google local search ideally takes information from enterprise websites, companies' websites, data aggregators, and local directories. And it tries to make sure they're consistent, which is our NAP consistency. But it will look on your page to see if you've got an address, and ideally you want those in a postal code format. And it'll sort of recognize when they're written out that way. There is local address schema that you can put on your page, and I've been doing that too.
Yeah, I do it on every page. In the footer now, it's basically, I do like to do two things. I also like to put a very short stuff about the company as well. So I'll have all their same as type information there as well. A bit about the company, kind of like an organization schema.
Mm-hmm.
I like to have all that. I'll often combine those two as well. So the address schema and the local.
Right, I do the same.
Yeah.
I saw, but
and I like to do product and offer on any product pages.
I saw someone not too long ago complaining that they had lost their GMB account because they were putting their the schema in the meta, and then their second location address was on their contact page, and they didn't match. So they lost their Google My Business listing.
That's stupid in two ways too, because not only that, you confuse them as to what address the site is actually for.
Well, they were trying to figure out a way to rank twice, and they managed to rank not even once. So there's a plan gone sour, eh?
You can get penalized for that.
Yeah.
You know what you do though? You do a full organization schema and mark the other as a second place, basically.
Well, this is somebody that they just found a snippet, I think, and they had no idea how to really do schema,
right.
So they just copy pasted something and plugged in their data.
I don't really know what this is supposed to do, but I heard it's cool, so I want to do it.
Exactly.
I've seen them use a catch-all schema across the whole board of the site, and then have location pages that have a different schema. So then there's a conflict between their meta schema and the actual schema for that location page.
That's bad news.
Bad news.
Yeah, you have to be pretty careful using the rating stuff too. I came across the site that got penalized during the schema where they went after manual penalties on markup. And what they had done is use the ratings for the whole site on all their product pages too.
Ooh.
So
Yeah, that's not going to fly.
it looked like it was getting, and it wasn't done properly for product.
I was curious as to whether or not there were other local SEO companies using schema on their websites. So I started searching for them. I found one that had, in its knowledge panel, it said it had 50 reviews. And so I said, okay, let me take a look at these reviews. And I visited the page where it had reviews. It had 3.
Well, they were probably counting the ones they had on LinkedIn and their Facebook page, and
Yeah, but even if you don't tell where they came from, Google can look at that and bet
Sure.
on it.
Yeah, I didn't send them a warning that might disappear, but it might.
Mhm.
And who knows? Sometimes you can't even blame the SEO. It's better to blame the plugin that he was using. But not too many people. It's really hard to do schema on WordPress without using a plugin.
And
I've done that. It's a pain in the ass.
And some themes have schema built into them. They may not be the schema that you want, but they're there.
Yeah, it's a
And
default.
it might not even be done correctly, Yost.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I won't use a plugin for schema at all. I code it in. It's just not, but it is a pain in the ass on WordPress. Yeah.
I have an internal one that I'm building right now to do my own. And it's going to suppress some of the Yoast and some of the other ones that are
Better thing. Just don't install it. That's the best way to use Yoast.
Yeah.
Just install it. That's the first thing I do when I come across the site that's got it. I uninstall it. When a plugin is so dumb that it builds indexes for a site that has 6 pages, you got to wonder about the programming of it, don't you? And yeah, I'm not afraid to say what is on my mind.
So you don't like index sitemap indexes on sites that have 10 or fewer pages on each of the sitemaps.
Yoast makes a different sitemap for every category.
Right.
In some cases.
And
So
there's
6 pages in 6 categories. You have 6 sitemaps with 1 URL in each.
there is a valid reason for doing that, but it
That's new to me. What would the valid reason be for doing that?
for categorizing pages that might be in your XML sitemap, so you can diagnose when something goes wrong and you can easily identify which URLs may have problems, which types of pages may have problems.
I can see where that might be useful on a really large,
but on the other hand,
an e-com,
it's more useful on a really large site than a really small site.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a site with 1 million pages, because you got to have it in indexes anyhow. But if you got a site less than 1,000 pages, having an index is stupid.
I've never seen Yoast do it that way, but I stopped using Yoast probably a year ago and went to all-in-one.
Every one I see is a bunch of indexes.
Well, what I did see it do though for a long time, it would build an index XML, and then in that index you would have your posts, your pages, your categories, your tags, your images, video, whatever, and that's okay. But your categories would be one XML sitemap for all categories.
So Google grabs the XML sitemaps and it grabs all the URLs and it just puts them together in one file and crawls those. It doesn't care.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really see that it does any harm, Terry. It's a stupid approach, I think, but I don't think that it presents any hazard for the site. Do you?
It's a maintenance nightmare. When you do have a problem with the indexing, like you get the message, you have a coverage issue. They give you one example, and there may be a lot more spread across multiple of those files. So where do you start when you have multiple? It comes down to maintenance, right? And keep it simple, stupid. Bottom line.
Well, that's where Yoast just messed up. They messed up the last two where they keep it stupid, simple.
And just the way it's coded, if you look at on his local SEO thing, right? Pretty sure the code doesn't need to have all those REM things in it to escape special characters in the code. He's using, he's doing the matchstick syndrome. And like as a programmer, you're taught to avoid that like the plague. And there's no need to do it in this case. It's the way he's storing it. I guess I should, I'm seriously looking at doing some similar work. So that's why I'm picking it apart. It's been a bit of research. Then there's, number one pet peeve with it is the 60 character titles.
You're hyper-focused on all the issues.
Yeah.
Which makes sense if you're going to be involved in that. Yeah.
Well, and also, I just think it's a product that was hyped so much, people just use it for that reason, not even realizing the issues with the program.
Uh-huh.
How about the fact that it doesn't handle, it doesn't make unique categories, which is simple to do. The titles on categories or any archive pages with Yoast, he doesn't give them, doesn't give them unique titles.
I think, when I looked at Yoast, first looked at it 6-7 years ago, I was impressed. I thought they'd done a decent job of putting a pretty good plugin together to handle the basics for the folks, the unwashed masses that aren't into it like we are. But
it's great for doing meta tags and titles. My only issue with the titles is he's insisting that it's 60 characters, and that's hogwash. That's it. That's a myth that's been around the industry so long, and I even know what it's based on. It's based on a discussion that was held in the fucking 90s.
Well, it's gotten so bloated, and I think there's too many fingers in the pie there.
Well, you know what the basis of it was, Doc? We decided that it's probably best to use 60 characters because that's all Google would display.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, common sense says that's what it is. Then you do tests later and use all in title, right? Or in title, and it tells you, well, it's 82 to 85 characters that they actually say with their syntax, this is how much is in the title. They actually index everything up to 1,024 characters in a title.
So they truncate what they'll display.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
And you have no choice as to what they'll actually display.
Right. But how that started was our thing was, well, they're showing roughly 60 characters. So the most important parts, words and things that you're starting to communicate in your title, right, should be in the first 60 characters. At no point did we ever say that it was 60 characters that was being indexed, because we didn't know at that time. However, that myth grew to be what it is today, and everyone pretty well thinks it's 60 characters.
Well, that's just one of a long list of myths, though, that have been repeated enough times by the wrong people that everybody buys into it. Yeah.
Sort of like the revisit tag.
Mhm.
You know,
or like on a
So-
paginated series that you should always canonicalize to the first page of a series.
right.
You know?
So the revisit tag was started by Search BC, a directory in British Columbia that only included British Columbian sites. The person who developed it came up with a meta tag generator program that became really popular. It included revisit after. So people started using the meta tag generator program, which included revisit after, and they generate their meta tags and put them on their pages. So even though they weren't in British Columbia and had no intention of being in the Search BC directory, they had revisit after in their headings. And then people copied what was in other people's websites and included that too.
Sounds
So-
cool. I'll use it.
Totally useless, but
Well, that's like, and I love it when you you look at somebody's source code and you see that they've got do follow in their links.
However, that tag, if it's formulated correctly, Bill, the revisit tag, if it's formulated correctly, it's totally legit. Because those tags they were made, the HTTP tags were made so that any program could use that for anything that they wanted to. Seriously. Because that's also how Microsoft used to do their includes.
does it mean anything to
No, it
a
doesn't.
company like Google?
They're not protocols, but the HTTP tags are actually built on a formula. So all you have to have is HTTP, name it, like revisit after, and a value.
Right, but it's got as much value as a robots tag that's index follow.
So I guess what you're saying is
You're-
it would validate, Terry, but Google's not going to pay attention to it, but you're saying it would validate?
Yeah, it's a valid tag. It's
Okay.
just not used by anybody. That's so a program like Microsoft could add that stuff in to do their includes with front page was done like that.
It's all bloat now.
Yeah.
It's all wasted
yeah, for
digital ink.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when they used to put Dublin Core tags in. Nobody
Oh,
used
God.
them,
And
but they
people
were in there.
and people still do.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know one guy that does.
Oh, yeah.
We know one guy that does.
I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure I know.
Oh, you're sure. Yeah, RDFA and Dublin Core.
Okay. Yeah, I had another friend who was doing something with SEO, and he made up his own tag as well for a directory too, I believe. Or was it to tell who had done certain work? I have to look that up. That was a long time ago. But that's how I learned that those HTTP tags were like that. It's like a formula, and as long as you follow the formula, it's good. It's a valid tag. That's how you can also use them in schema.
Yeah.
For the same reason that it's a formula. In that case, the search engine actually understands it.
Oh, when's the last time you used a keyword tag?
Oh, I still fill them in.
Do you?
Yeah, local search on the site sometimes, right? If someone implements it, you can use your own tags and it's not like they do anything, but I just like to fill in as many as I, no stone left unturned, and it's good for advancement, right? If someone decides to add their own search feature to a site, for instance.
So I used Google Custom Search, and it didn't care about keyword tags.
Well, yeah. When I do a site search, I usually am focusing on categories and tags. And that's the only time I'll use tags is if I'm going to have a search engine on the site. But,
you're talking about tags on WordPress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's great for an on-site search engine. I never use the keywords meta. I don't need to broadcast that stuff. I don't care to have everybody know what we're trying to rank for. Let them run it through a tool to figure it out.
Yeah, one of the first shopping carts I wrote had thousands of products in it, and trying to write a search program for it was way over my pay scale at that point. So I bought a search engine basically and put it on the site. And that's how it did it. You could use your own keywords on the page. That's how it did the search.
Well, that makes sense. We're trying. Yeah.
What about on the schema for? I've seen static schema markup for reviews. So I see one that said, I'm reading one now. It says review count and then average or rating value equals in schema. So you were talking earlier how they showed 50, but when you went to the site, they actually only had 4.
Yeah.
Are they pulling those? That's a static schema with what I'm looking at. It's being generated from, I can't remember what program or what plugin, but it's generating a schema for reviews that you basically write those numbers in.
And they had written 50 into the schema, which is why they're now showing 50 reviews. But they only had 3 reviews on the page.
And were those 3 reviews, were they imported from elsewhere, or were they?
They looked like they were. They looked like they were generated there. They didn't look like they were third-party reviews.
Yeah, that would be pretty risky business.
To put 50 on the schema, yeah.
And actually, one of the things that when I was looking at that update, what they called it, the medic update.
Yeah.
I actually saw that in the examples that were on Systrix, retail sites that got hit because of their reviews. And with those, it was often because they weren't transparent enough. And I actually started to see a trend where if you could identify that the person who did the review had also bought the product from you, those were the ones that I was seeing. And those did really well on Google. The ones that didn't give any information or had stuff like you mentioned where there's supposedly 50 and you see a lot less, those got hit hard. So transparency is a big deal with them. And not making the person run around to see that transparency, where they couldn't see what they couldn't figure out right on the page what was what. If they had to go elsewhere to actually figure it out, no good.
I would expect, though, that, for instance, if somebody's using an API to import Amazon or Yelp reviews, that those, I wouldn't expect that to be a negative, that somebody's going to have to actually go to Yelp to verify those, because both of those companies require well, that's not true. Amazon, for instance, requires you to have been a purchaser before you can review a product.
Right.
So I would expect that at least would be given some more credibility, and going to Amazon to see the review on Amazon, I would hope would not be seen as a negative.
If your schema indicates that you've got 50 reviews on your page and you're showing 3 and the other 47 are on Amazon, that's a failure in my book because you're inconsistent.
You should have told them.
You're not showing data that is available on your page, which you're saying in schema is.
But if the schema said Amazon and our site, that would be different. I'm
not sure the schema really indicates that.
Schema, I don't think it really gives you the ability in schema to do that.
You can tell where it came from.
But if it's multiple sources?
I think you can.
Can you? Okay. I know you can point it. You can say Amazon, but I don't know if you can.
But it would make sense from other things I've seen that they would do that. Because there's lots of places that take it from more than one thing. For instance, there's some product reviewers that they review products, right? So you may have only had 3 reviews on your site, but if there was another site with the products, they aggregate all the things, and then you have to put that it's an aggregated number.
You can register as a critical reviewer who reviews movies, books, other products.
Yeah, that's probably something worth looking into, though. Now that if you could put more than one aggregator in. Say, for instance, if you had reviews on your site, Google reviews, Yelp reviews, put them all in one, right?
Like
aggregate them into one thing. Pardon me?
Yeah, a review aggregator that brings them all in and keeps up with the count.
Yeah. And there must be a way that you could do that.
I would think so.
I'm not sure if there's a schema that specifically does that.
Well, I'm going to find out. I'll let you know next week.
I may have a plug-in for that by next week.
Are you a member of the schema mailing list?
I'm not.
I joined it. I've been not seeing as many emails from them recently.
Yeah, I joined it when you recommended it a few months back, and I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen anything yet. I don't think since like November.
I need to do that.
It's worthwhile, Ken. There's some interesting stuff once in a while.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember last time I saw anything. I think it's been a couple of weeks at least.
Oh, I don't think I've seen anything for a couple of months.
I think I saw some in December.
Really?
Yeah.
I may have missed it.
I need to check that. I like the schemas. I really I'm partial to schema. Let's just say that. I like it a lot.
Well, I used to sing the praises of RDFA over the others, over microformats, but when the big three got together with schema, it just wasn't a fight I was going to win. So, and now I liked RDFA because it was so extensible. Schema has grown a lot, and now it does essentially anything I'm likely to need to do. You can do a schema.
I think it's the future.
Yeah, I've kind of accepted that.
Well, I think it's going to become like, lots of things that you do just because you should. That's the best way to do it.
It is one of the fastest growing areas of SEO. It's where the most changes are taking place.
Well, I think if you're not trying to learn schema, then you're not really looking to move forward.
Well, another interesting aspect of schema is that I found out a couple of weeks ago that Yandex has been expanding their efforts. You know, they were only occasionally from certain areas of Western Europe were they paying any attention to schema, and now they're basically adopting it all over their world. You know, so if you're doing anything in Eastern Europe, for instance, or in the Southern Bloc, you know, you probably need to be doing it. If you're working under Yandex search, you definitely want to be doing schema too.
They have their own tools, just like Google.
Now, schema was started as a joint venture of Google, Bing,
and Yahoo.
Yandex signed on not too much later.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that because I know that this was just a couple months ago that I saw this, and they were not doing much with it.
There was a semantic technology and business conference that used to include lots of people from Google talking about schema, but it would include people from the other places too, like Yahoo, and people from Yandex would show up too to talk about new things in schema that they were doing at Yandex.
Cool.
So they are involved in it.
I wasn't aware that they had signed on, but I'm pleased to see that they're actually paying some serious attention to it now. They were paying some token attention to it before. I think we just play with it and see if it's worth following up on, and now apparently they've bought in 100%. And I still like Yandex Webmaster Tools. They got a nice system put together. Unfortunately, I just don't have any clients presently under their umbrella, but
same here.
Had one guy in Czechoslovakia for a while, and that's what got me interested in Yandex. But
so what do you think of the role of schema and voice search for like Amazon Alexa or the Echo and stuff like that?
We've seen schema release speakable markup. Google's approved it. It hasn't. It's still sort of a pending schema under the official schema.org setup. Google said if you're a news site and you're using schema markup, you're an official signed on to Google News type news site, we'll try to use your schema to read your answers out when people ask questions that you cover. So I think there's value in that. Is if that fits in with the schema for featured snippets, in that people are asking questions and you're answering them. So you're providing answers that specifically can be spoken. And Google has released a white paper that talked about studies they've done on machine learning, where the appropriate places might be to insert pauses in those types of questions and to emphasize different words. So they've been studying it.
Boy, that's going to be a tough project. Trying to put realistic speech in is going to be challenging.
Well,
that's where having a markup to do it makes it less challenging.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They've
markup.
They've shown, was it Duo, where Google Assistant, Google Now, can make phone calls for you, and they're realistic sounding phone calls with pauses in them and terms that people say that aren't really words they insert into conversations. Yeah. Types of things like that. So Google has been studying how to make those types of calls. They gave an example at the Google I/O this past year, where they made a bunch of calls like that for people to reserve food, to book hotel rooms, to get a haircut. So they are working on that.
So pretty soon someone will come out with a plug-in that'll order a hooker for you.
Well, Terry.
That's another business model.
There you go.
When I got interested in structured data was there was a member in the dojo. She actually was had interviews with Google, wrote some stemming. She was a very smart woman. And I basically said, this stuff's a waste of time. And in about 3 minutes, she turned me around. All she said was, well, all your code will now be machine readable. Just remember that. Don't think about SEO. Just think now everything on your page is machine readable if you want the most important parts. Then I realized what its role would be, and yeah, turned me around in a hurry.
Think about XML sitemaps. They're not for humans. They're machine readable. They're supposed to speed up the indexing of the web. And they supposedly lead to discovering new pages on sites faster than link-based crawling does.
Mm-hmm.
So there's value to that. There's value to being able to provide machine-readable instructions to the search engine about what's important on your pages.
Yeah, not only that, in WordPress's case, it shows all the fresh material first. So they don't have to figure it out. It's right there in black and white.
Yeah. If you use event markup, you're providing a chance for Google to grab the event information and put it in search results as something that stands out. And people don't have to search for that event on your web page anymore. They just see it in search results, which can increase the number of people who attend your events. I know it's worked well with the clients I have use it.
I've actually done some programming with it. Basically wrote a program that'll do event schema and manage events.
I have a friend who complained about event markup and said, why do we have to provide this so people can see in search results? It was for a charity horse race. And I asked her for the URL for the page that provided information about the charity horse race. She sent it to me, and it took about 10 minutes of looking on that page to find where, when, how much it cost, all that. It's like, if you could just, and I sent her a response back saying, now if I can just search for this in search results and it shows me all the event information, I don't have to go to the page and try to find it. It's an improvement. And she looked at it and replied, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the purpose behind the web page, to get people to go to the event. They don't care that you're reading the page to find out.
Right.
Just as long as you learn about the event, you go to it and you pay for it.
If they'd include the buy ticket button, that'd be perfect. Eh?
Pretty soon you'll be trying to get rankings for a markup for your contact page. Request a quote to show up right in the SERP.
That's not far off. I'll bet
It's doable.
when they're doing the local service stuff, that'll be huge in the future, I'm sure of it.
Right,
Say
there-
event markup and the ability to buy the ticket right on Google.
Sign up or
In
whatever.
the Google My Business posts, they have event buttons and they have product buttons. So you can buy right from there. You can book right from there.
But that event markup is a double-edged sword because for some clients, I was using the events to catch people earlier in the buying cycle. In other words, if they were looking for a city name hotel, that was a little more competitive than targeting that event. And we just put a booking engine right next to the event info. So now they'll be able to see the info without going to my booking engine.
Yeah, if you're a booking engine, you're probably not going to look on that very good.
Well, yeah,
That is an improvement, I don't think.
Optimizing for an event is really, really easy to pop up for an event. And then before you can book your hotel room, you got to know the event dates. So what I was doing was getting the traffic before they got to the booking phase when they were doing the research. And then we just happened to have a booking engine there so they could book.
But that would be something that people would check out the prices of if it was, say, for instance, for a hotel, they would want it, well, I got to stay somewhere, so I'll check out the price of the hotel. That's probably a good idea. Especially if the event was in the hotel.
Oh, absolutely.
There you go. Event was one of the harder ones that I found to implement.
Really?
Yeah. More complicated.
Yeah, there's a lot more information you have to enter on them.
And it has, there's more, what do you call it? Things that you have to have there that you may not want to have there or can't put there. For instance, they want a price while putting 0 as the price, right? That caused a warning because I didn't have a price on it or an image.
And the reason why you didn't have a price was because the price
free.
varied?
No, because it's free.
Oh.
And there was no image for the thing because it was an event, but it wasn't an event that has a logo. So it caused a warning, which I don't think that is bad. It's just Google saying, hey, stupid, do you have one of these too? I think that's really what it is.
Yeah, as long as they're not precluding you putting up the event, then I guess that's okay. But yeah, that would piss you off if you were having a free event. They wouldn't let you list it because you weren't charging for it.
Right. That's why I think it's only a warning and not an error. Right? Because they saw, okay, you may not need that because
otherwise people would start charging for everything.
Right. There's lots of events are free. They're made to promote something, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't make it any less of an event because it's free.
So if your purpose is to build brand awareness, let people find out where you're located. I mean, that's free, but that's at the cost of you actually visiting the place so you learn where it is.
Hey, and what would you do if you had tiered pricing? You know, if
you can do ranges in Schema too. I had a product where it started at and ended at another number. There's actually Schema to do that.
Ah, okay.
You just have to figure out the wording you want to use. I decided to start from and then a second number after it. I don't know if I still have that implemented. I'll show you sometime.
I think sometimes leave things like that open and see how people implement things to get some idea of how they might prefer to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Not if you're the one trying to set it up and you have no idea how to.
Well, no, but I mean, from their standpoint, to develop the flexibility in the system to allow a broad range of different kinds of activities and events, it makes sense that they would want to get some feedback, some examples.
So I set up question and answer schema because my last blog post was asking whether or not you needed schema markup to get featured snippets. So I used that as a question as the title for the post and provided an answer right underneath. So I wanted to put schema on the page with the question and the answer. So I wrote it up. There were some, you can use that schema on question and answer websites. So you can indicate how many times a question has been asked and how many times it's been answered. So I was just the only one using it. I wasn't asking more than once. I wasn't answering more than once. So I didn't see a need for those. So I didn't include them. So I run it through the structured data testing tool, and it gives me a warning that something's missing.
Yeah, and I found that's when you can leave it out, it's like a reminder. Are you sure you don't want to add this in too?
Yeah, it was a warning that something was missing.
Well, it isn't actually a warrant. Well, this is my opinion, Bill. When I see those, I see that as if you have a value, you could put this here. But if you don't worry about it. That's why it's a warning.
That's why I just decided to post it and test it to see if it showed up as a featured snippet. Yeah, I don't know yet. I just wrote that.
Oh, we'll have to get lots of links to it to see what happens.
We'll see.
But now that I know that there is answer schema, I'm going to go to an FAQ that I have. And
there's a QA page or QA schema. There's an answer schema. There's a question schema. So they have a little variety there. There's one that's supposed to be when you have multiple questions on a page, and there's one when you just have one question.
Yeah, that's so it can handle the FAQ structure where you put all the questions at the top and then they can take links, anchored links down. One thing I noticed today, yesterday when I was coding, we used to, this is really going to date me. Now they use ID to identify the anchor name. So before we put ref equals and you name it, right?
Yeah.
Now you have to use the ID or it doesn't freaking work. Oh, excuse me. That's probably a Bootstrap thing too, because I was using Bootstrap. But I'm doing it, and I'm trying to do a single page where everything's on one page, and you can hit the menu at the top, and it jumps down using the anchor, right? It wouldn't.
I did a blog post that was like 8,000 words long, so I needed some of those. So I decided to do that too. I looked up in W3 schools.
Right. That's where I look too.
Yeah, and I saw exactly what you're talking about, using IDs for the anchor name.
We didn't used to do that. Wasn't it at the anchor part, you put a name equals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That blew my mind because I'm sitting there trying to think, how come this isn't working? I've been using this code for years. What's going on? And then I figured it out. They changed the code. It doesn't work anymore.
So I wonder how many sites are still out there that are probably messed up now.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. There's
a
got
bunch. Oh, yeah.
Some of mine.
Yeah, Eve World probably got some of that too.
Note to self, eh?
Let me write that one down.
So I wasn't sure that both methods had stopped working, but I decided to try the ID method, and it worked fine. So, no change. But somebody had written up a blog post about using answer schema, and they said you have to link to the answer using an ID like that. I looked at the schema, and it didn't say anything about any of that. So I didn't do it. I don't know if it's going to help or not.
I'm going to look that up and try it. I got a Q&A page that I've always said should rank and should have snippets coming from it.
Yeah.
See what happens now.
It'd be nice if it started ranking.
Yeah.
Started showing snippets.
I've seen the frickin' search lately. Half the page is answers now.
Yeah.
You hardly see any that don't have answers in them. Which
Definitely
is,
worth looking at.
yeah, Google's slowly moving to the one click. It's coming. It's close.
I'm not sure they're targeting one click. I think they want you to spend all day clicking on answers and expanding them and reading. I'm going to go Google something. I'll see you in a couple days.
Yeah, it'll be better than having 86 tabs open on your browser, right?
Well, you can tell they program those answers so that they're infinite, that you could be there all day. Just keep asking questions.
That's a fact.
The way they phrase it, they're connecting them by an answer graph. And
Also, almost like the knowledge graph type thing then, eh?
yeah.
You sure it's not the AdWords graph that's doing all this?
No, there are people who would say that having those ads on there would mean that the answers are stealing clicks from the ads. I'm sure that's what people used to say about the authorship markup.
Mm-hmm.
The photographs of people from social networks who answered, who provided a post about something you had a question on. They were saying that those photos of authors were stealing clicks from ads. I'm not sure that's why they stopped showing them.
Never made any sense to me.
I told somebody who said that they were likely wrong, and they said I was naive.
That's a very kind way of putting it, Bill.
Yeah.
They're likely wrong. That's synonymous with you got your head up your ass.
I didn't use that phrase, and I think I would have gotten more than a year naive back if I had said that. And all I got that and I laughed because it was funny.
You're just too laid back, Mr. Slosky.
Mm-hmm.
Usually.
Not always.
No, I know. I recall once or twice when you've gotten your blood pressure up a little bit. Doesn't happen often.
Well, we're at the top of the hour. We could close down. Anybody want to say anything about what they're up to? Any plans for next week? Terry, you want to start promoting your new plugins?
Yeah, still got to write them, Bill. The way things are going, I'll never get around to it.
The digital pimp.
You know what you have to do to get more clients? Tell people you don't want any. They start lining up at the door. That's the way it seems.
It always.
You know what I used to do with my copywriting agency when work started to get really heavy and I didn't want any more clients, I would raise my rates, figuring that will weed some of them out. And invariably, every time I raised my rates, business went through the roof.
I remember some SEOs who were sort of well-known SEOs posted in social networks that they started charging $1,000 an hour.
Must be nice, eh?
And that supposedly brought them a lot of attention and potentially some new clients.
Was it the IRS?
Yeah, by coincidence, I got this new client. He works for the government.
So that goes with the "May you live in interesting times" curse. It's the "May the government learn about you." Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you all for joining in. Got somebody trying to sell me insurance coverage. And bye, everyone.
Bye all.